Welcome to Now and Forever, a series of 10-minute reflections on good news spirituality, sponsored by the Charles and Catherine Free Family Foundation, headquartered in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and brought to you from Our Lady of the Sacred Heart Parish here in Watertown, New York. Hi, I'm Father Vince Free, a missionary of the Sacred Heart. In this program, we explore an apostolic spirituality that's based on an acceptance of God's love. We're doing this to see whether it can serve as a grace-filled response to the Church's call for a new evangelization. Please join us in this pursuit. Spirituality as a vocation. Vicki, this is where we come down to where they say the rubber meets the road. No more abstract talk here. We're going to talk about vocation and spirituality and what that all means in this whole story about accepting God's love. So we'll read the text and then we'll discuss it.
Okay.
Spirituality as a vocation. It isn't easy to explain or grasp the notion of spirituality in the abstract. However, there are many stories in the Bible that show what it is in the form of a vocation. Spirituality and vocation go together. These begin with the story of Adam and Eve, who rejected their vocation and chose to follow their own will in reaching out for knowledge and power, in preference to God's plan of attaining perfection through obedience rooted in love. Then we have patriarchs, prophets, judges and kings, Abraham and Moses, Isaiah and Elijah, Deborah and Samuel, Saul and David, along with other leading figures like Samson and Ruth, all these Old Testament figures. In the New Testament, we have Peter and Paul, Judas, and Matthias, Barnabas, and Timothy. If you look closely at the lives of these biblical models, you'll find that they all had shortcomings and that some, like Adam and Eve, failed to fulfill their calling. Nevertheless, there are common elements in every vocation. So now that you're going to give that to us. Abraham had an active relationship with God. So that's part of what he's talking. You got to have your relationship with God. He was prepared to leave his homeland in the pursuit of God's will. As time passed, he became aware of the need to enter into a covenant with God in order to found a nation or people ordained to worship the one true God. That's now his vocation. He knew that God alone could empower him to achieve that goal. Finally, all that he did was expressed as a response to God's call. Peter, in falling to his knees at the miraculous catch of fish and owning up to his being a sinner, showed that God figured significantly in his life. He too was prepared to leave all things, and in answer to his doubt, Jesus assures him, "I will make you a fisher of men." So he's not doing it on his own, Jesus is going to make him a fisher of men. Spirituality as a vocation means putting God first in our lives, ready to subordinate all of our plans to the pursuit of God's will. Disposed to counter evil and to respond to evident needs, we do so in an awareness that God empowers us to act in His name. When what we do is formally incorporated into the life of the church, that is, for example, by taking religious or marriage vows or serving in a ministry or mission, it becomes a vocation in a biblical tradition, a spirituality that deepens our communion with Christ in worship, witness, and service. End of text. So, you've read this before, and we've looked at it a little bit, but what I think is we got to start with this idea of what's the basis of a vocation. Like Abraham, you have to have an awareness of God. Suppose God doesn't really figure in your life. You going to have a vocation?
No.
You're going to do whatever you're going to do it. So the first thing is God has to figure in your life. This is spirituality. If you don't have God in your life, forget it. Then the next thing was, there has to be some awareness of something to do, like an urgent need or a calling from God, that like Abraham felt that need that he was going to have. He was going to create a people who would really, like his family that he was leaving with his household gods, he's going to create another family who will enter into true worship. The third thing he said here, as time passed, he became aware, that he could not do this on his own hook. God had to empower him. And so he entered into this covenant so that God could empower him. And then we have another element that they call here, that he left his home. This idea of spirituality means leaving, like Peter had to leave his boat and his nets. Now, some people talk about, well, Peter, he was The boat probably had no leaks, and the nets always needed mending. So when he was leaving, what was he leaving? No, I think Peter had a very good boat, and I think he had real good nets, and he had to leave them.
So there's like this real desire to pursue, to follow
the call. And even though you got good nets or bad nets, beside the point. What matters is you're going to follow the call, and that's the leaving. Mm-hmm. And then there was another thing in here. That you have to now do something to really fulfill this vocation. To actively pursue it. So that's a good thing. Now, what we're saying here is that this spirituality is based on the vocation, and the vocation exemplifies the spirituality. So that it's an active spirituality in all these cases because they were called to do something of significance. And this was where Peter, in his own owning up, first of all, to owning up to being a sinner, showed that God figured significant in his life, and he was prepared to leave all things, and he knew that Jesus had to do something about it and make you a fisher of men. So where does that leave us? I think the most important thing here, Vicki, is get the people here involved. When you think about what we just talked about, you got to first of all say, my spirituality is how deep? Well, as deep as God is important to you, as significant as God is in your life, there's a readiness then to really pursue what you might do in fulfillment of His will. And so this puts it right away in the context of what I see as desire.
And commitment.
Well, yes, but desire is going to, the measure of your desire is going to measure your commitment.
Right.
Let's say you have a weak desire. Is your commitment going to be very strong?
No. No.
No, but see, now, the strength of the desire, what's it based on? See, we can have, in fact, that's one of the big problems in the world today. People think if I have a desire, that's a value, and if it's a value, it's a right. But that's not true. There are good desires and there are bad desires. And there are true values and there are counterfeit values. And if you go like many people today, they just embrace all the counterfeit values and they think that since it's their desire, it's okay. Doesn't work that way. So when we go to what's a good desire? Well, Jesus said, about the Last Supper, he said, with desire, I have desired to eat this Passover with you. With desire. In other words, that's what he wanted to do. It was that his whole life was to give himself fully and completely to his disciples, to his followers, to those who were given that calling to follow Jesus and all that he did and all that he wanted to get done. So, okay, desire, but now, is desire, how about desire in your own life? Let's say you desire to go shopping, okay?
No.
No, you don't?
No.
Well, then why do you go shopping?
Because I have to.
Okay, so therefore,
I do it as little as possible.
All right. But what we have here is that there's not a desire behind that because it's just necessity.
Right.
So necessity urges you and then you go.
Right.
All right. Now, suppose you had a desire to, let's say, go out and just shoplift. I said, heck with paying for this stuff, I'll go shoplift. Would that be good?
I wouldn't do it.
You wouldn't do it, but okay,
No.
But it would be a wrong desire, would it not?
Right.
All right. Now, could you actually have a case where you would go shopping and it would be like here's an instance where you're living up to a given calling that you have in your life. Suppose you went shopping to buy something for someone in need. Okay, you know somebody that really has a need for just even food. And now you go shopping with that as your desire.
Right.
What happens to your shopping then? It's no longer urgency, is it?
No.
And as part of the way that you give yourself to God and the way that I got to watch my clock here. The way this becomes, not depending on your vocation, which we're going to talk about later, I hope. Because if you were a monk, it'd be a different thing. But you have a family and you're married and so forth, and you sing in the choir, and all these different things come into your life. That's part of how you respond to that vocation. Okay, so getting back to the beginning of this thing so we can move forward the next time in the next reflection, we talk about vocation requires that God has significance in your life, that you feel a call to do something of moment that either responds to an urgent need or to something that is going to be important in God's life, that you realize you can't do this on your own, that you need God's empowerment, and that finally you are prepared to leave or leave behind all attachments that are irrelevant, and you seek first the kingdom of heaven, and all else will be added to you. So that kind of sums up what this is at. Now you can say, if we want to know what spirituality is, you got a term, if you want a concrete realization that, what's my vocation in life? What is God calling me to do? And then, to the degree that what you do and are empowered by God to do, that then is how you find out what your vocation is. Is there anything else here that we didn't? Oh yeah, well, the examples of the difference of, like when you go to work, what do you bring with you that's going to make this a gift to God? You have to somehow or another end up with a desire that you're going to serve God in your work. So we'll close with that and look forward to carrying this forward in the next session. Thank you very much for listening. Take care and God bless.